Hey there, this is Craig Shoemaker, new media evangelist for Infragistics. And before we get started, there's just a few things I want to share with you. If you have any questions about this screencast, please feel free to email me at cshoemaker@infragistics.com. For support, you can head over to infragistics.com/gethelp. And if you're looking for documentation on any one of our controls, you can go to infragistics.com/docs. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome back to the WebSpellChecker control series. Today I'm going to show you how you can do spell checking with multiple controls. So I'll give you a little demo here. Let's say you've got a page here that's dealing with some sort of content management system, and you have the title for the content item, and then you have some content here. Instead of having to have different spell check buttons for each one of the controls, what I wanted to do was set up a page where a single button would handle the spell checking for all the controls. So we'll launch this here. You'll see that it's pulling the content from the title here, and we'll change it to "This is my title." And then it moves down to the content, and then we can correct the spelling here. Once that's done, we get a little alert box saying the spell check is complete, and we can continue on from there. All right, well, that's the demo. Let me show you how to build it. All right, so just so that you know, I'm running Visual Studio 2008 against .NET 3.5, and I have NetAdvantage 2008 Volume 2 installed on this machine. We are going to begin by creating a new website, standard ASP.NET website, and I'm going to call this one Multi-Check. Good, there's our web page. Now, I have some code kind of set aside here that I'm going to paste onto the screen just so that we don't have to watch me make a bunch of typing mistakes. So what we'll do is we'll start off with putting the controls that we saw on the screen. So let's start by bringing our text box for the title over, and we'll bring a text box for the content. So the first one will be a simple text box, just a regular text box, and this will be a multi-line text box. So we already have our default text in here, and this should be pretty basic. Now, we are going to use some of the JavaScript functions found in ASP.NET Ajax. So what we also will do is put a script manager on the page. And we need a control to initiate the spell check. So we'll go ahead and put a button on the screen. Now you'll notice this is a standard HTML input button. We're not using a server control because if you use a server control, the postback mechanism, the JavaScript that's created for the postback, will get in the way of what we're trying to do. We are going to call a JavaScript function manually, and that's what will allow it to happen. So we need one more control marked up here, and that's the spell checker control itself. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and use the toolbox to bring this on, so that way it builds our register tag for us. So I'm going to change the ID here to WPC checker. We'll customize a few of the properties here. So we're going to say the text component ID is equal to the ID for the title. So we just need a place to start. So we'll start here and say txt title. Now, with the JavaScript that we're going to implement, we will run through all the controls on the page. But again, this is just a place to start. The final thing that we need to do is to customize the dialog options. So from the dialog options, we show finished message, we want that to say false. And that's because the WebSpellChecker will open up two dialog boxes for the two controls on the page. So we'll open up a dialog box for each one of the controls on the page. The default behavior of that control is to show its own JavaScript alert box saying that the spell check is done, and I don't want one of those alert boxes every single time we go from a control. So I'm turning it off at this point, and then the JavaScript that we implement will have the alert box for us. So the only thing that we're missing at this point is the JavaScript that will glue everything together. Okay, well, let's start by creating a script block. Now, the way that this is going to work is that we'll create an array that holds the IDs for the controls that we have on the page. So, right now we have 2. This way, it doesn't matter how many, we can extend it at that point. So we'll create an array to hold the IDs, and then as you click the button, it will create basically a loop that allows you to go through each one of the items in the array, run the spell check, get the text, set it back to the controls value, and go on to the next one. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's create a couple variables here. We'll create one for the current index, and also for our array. call this controls, and I'll initialize it as a new array. To stick some values in the array, we'll say controls, and the first position will be the client ID for the title. So the easiest way to do this is to ask the control itself to emit out its client ID. So we'll do the brackets, and we'll say txt title.client ID, and that'll expose that for us. And stick another one in the array. This will be, got to get our brackets in there. txt content.client ID. Okay, now if you remember down here from the button, we had this btn spell check function. So let's go ahead and get a stub going for that. Now what we want to happen when someone clicks on the spell check button is to run a spell check. So let's create a function called check spelling, and we'll pass in the array index as it corresponds here to which ID that we're going to be looking at. So create this function. Now because of the way the spell checker control works is it has a callback to a function once the spell check has been completed. So what we're going to do, we're going to have to access what our current index is in another function. So we're going to set aside the index that we're passing in here as the current index. So we'll set it aside by doing this. And then we're going to say if the current index is less than the controls length, then we'll go ahead and run the spell check. Otherwise, we're going to say that we're done and the spell check is complete. So this is kind of we're implementing the same type of logic as a for loop, but since we have to split it up between two functions, this is how we're going to do it. So if we're not less than the length of the controls, then we can safely say that the spell check is complete. If we need to run the spell check, then we'll go ahead and do that. Now one of the nice things about the client object model of the Infragistics controls is that once I've declared it on the page, now all I have to do is do the letter O and then the ID of the control. So I can say WPC checker, check spelling, and from here I'll use the ASP.NET AJAX shortcut to get, go into the controls array, grab based off of the current index, and get the value out of there. So we're sending the current controls value into the check spelling method, and then for the function callback, we're going to create a function called onTextChecked. Okay, so when onTextChecked is called, it will pass in the checked text, the corrected text. So we'll create that function. And what we're doing here, the first thing that we'll do is find the current control that we're looking at and set its value equal to the checked text. So we can do a get controls current index value equals checked text. We're going to implement the current index at this point, so bump that up 1, and then we'll call the check spelling function again so that we continue to loop through all the controls. So there it is. We have an array with all the IDs. We'll start by going to the first one. We'll loop through all of them. Once we get to the end, then we'll pop up an alert box that says the check is complete. All right, well, let's run it and see what happens. So here we have our controls with our spelling errors. When we click check spelling, the first dialog box will pop up looking at the title here. So this should be, this is my title, change that. Then it moves on to the next control. Here's the content, double click, and there's our alert box to say that the spell check is complete. Well, I hope you have fun with this control. Go wild. Make sure that all the text being submitted to your sites are, have all their errors corrected well. So this is Craig Shoemaker, and until next time, I'll talk to you soon.
Infragistics, powering the presentation layer. Infragistics.com